Welcome to Wealth Well Done. Together, we'll cover a wide range of important topics surrounding money and the impact it has on our lives. From the sophisticated and highly valuable planning techniques of the ultra-wealthy to the commonly underutilized biblical teachings. Together, we'll work to improve our relationship with money and our effectiveness in stewarding it well. Here's your host, Eric Scovill.
All right, welcome to the 80th episode of the Wealth Well Done podcast, where we are focusing on tactical, practical, and biblical ways to help you do your wealth well done, as well as your business well done and your business life well done here. And so back again this week with Josh Fonger, founder of Fouth Soil Ventures. And so Josh is a business consultant and trainer that has been at this line of work for most of his career, and then more recently than I thought, had made a shift into going independent to really honor the Lord with his work. And so Josh moderated or managed me while I was trying to get other little plugs in there about my thoughts around the election and some other things that I wanted to make sure I discussed at some point. Let's get back into some of the business stuff, Josh, what you're doing. You have been you're coaching believers now, and you have been before as well, but now you're focused, solely on coaching believers here as they are trying to run their businesses. What are some ways that you are seeing that have surprised you of ways that Christian business owners are really doing it well?
Yeah, I think the ones that are really doing it well, they start with the right perspective. And it's subtle. Instead of saying this is my business, they say it's the Lord's business. And instead of doing it for their glory, they're doing it for the Lord's glory. And instead of, again, chasing the latest idea, book, podcast to find the techniques to do it, they're willing to look at the timeless ways that are in the Bible, those ways of doing it. So they're kind of rock solid on that. They're not trying to mix the two. They're trying to meld the two. They're just very clear. And so I've had some clients that they're very solid on that. And what I see consistently is that they have amazing long-term results, but the shorter term initial is harder and slower because they're going to wait in the Lord. They're going to pray. They're going to reflect. Or someone else is like, I'm just going to go. And they start going. And they change direction, and then they go some more, and they change direction, and then their company drops in half, and then they change. So they're more frantically moving, working way harder, but they don't really get very far.
Yeah.
And then there's a kind of a consistent cap that I see with people who they're missing the purpose for why they're doing the work.
Okay, that makes sense. Certainly on the slower piece of it too, it doesn't seem like there are some mighty moves where the Lord takes Joseph from prisoner to second in command pretty quick, but those seem to have been built in long periods of refinement first. And typically it seems like it follows the first the blade, then the ear, then the full corn in the ear kind of process of time needs to take time. The Lord needs to take time to work on the business owner and align everything else up before it's time for it to really to have the big jump forward. I know that, and we'll come back to that because I want to talk about growing your finish line again a little bit more, expanding on that from last time. But what are some ways that you are seeing Christian business owners really miss the mark?
A lot of them are missing the mark, and I think, I'm trying to think of what one way in particular. I think that they missed the mark, and you hit on it. And it's the difference between following biblical values and having a relationship with God. Is they just skip out on prayer. So if they skip that, then it's on to, well, let me just work hard because I'm supposed to work hard because I'm a Christian. Mm-hmm. And then it just devolves from there. And I think what happens is they work from a place of fear throughout the day, as opposed to a place of faith throughout the day. And then decisions are not made with faith and trust in God. They're made out of fear and how do I get this person to do what I want? How do I get this client to do what I like? So basically, it's trying to control and getting control to protect themselves. And so that's kind of the place I see. And I think it's also from a standpoint of what I'm going to give back to God with whatever's left at the end, if there is anything left at the end, which there usually isn't, as opposed to I'm going to start by giving and maximize that. And that's the reason why I'm working so hard, is to give, not we'll see what's left and then I can see what I can give. And so it's all these subtle things end up putting the owner in a place where they are they're handling and attacking all of the problems that they're dealing with from a horizontal and worldly standpoint, as opposed to a kind of a vertical standpoint, and saying, Father, what should I do in this circumstance? I want to honor you. And then waiting on the Lord, and then making a decision and doing it with peace, as opposed to with fear and alone.
Okay. So let's get very practical with this. I am growing in my ability to hear from the Lord. We're going to pretend that I'm your client here and you're consulting me. I am growing in my ability to hear from the Lord. But what I am significantly better at is praying and asking the Lord for guidance, waiting somewhere around 3 seconds, and then moving on. And so it's a struggle for me. And wouldn't you know it, the longer I actually spend with him, the more clarity I tend to get. Interesting how that works. But for me, if I've got a decision that appears to need an answer now or in the very near future, how are you guiding me to do that? If you're sitting there saying, wait on the Lord, and I'm saying, yeah, but this thing needs, they're waiting on me to make a decision right now. I've got people in the field or whatever the situation is. How do you guide people in that type of instance? Sure.
Yeah. Well, in most decisions, they don't require a significant amount of time to make them, right? If a decision comes your way, likely you're going to want to be honest and righteous in your response, right? So there's not all of the, I'll put it this way, you don't have to wait on the Lord if the Lord's already spoken about how to respond, right? So there's plenty in the Bible that's already tells you, should I be kind to my wife? Let me wait on the Lord. I guess I should, there's really no confusion about that, right? Should I try to hide this from this person and try to, be sneaky about this? No, actually, Bible says to be forthright and honest. So there's plenty of things that just are really, really clear, so you don't have to be concerned about. And then there's plenty of things that just are just simple logic and prudence, that God does give us logic and does give us wisdom and does give us experience. And so that wouldn't be bad to act on that. I think it's so, hopefully that help. If someone's getting hurt or injured, you would want to jump in and solve it, not let me see if God wants me to solve that problem.
Okay.
So I don't know if that helps or not. But I have seen, not always, but the people that I've worked with or in my life who they will prevent moving forward. And I've done it myself, moving forward with things that are very obvious, because they want to get a sign. They want to get a revelation. They want to get a dream first. And it's already obvious what the decision is to do. You should just go. God's word says this. You should just do it. And they're kind of using that as an excuse. And also, I would recommend, in your case, if you're praying all these things, obviously journaling. But when God gives you something to do, and you feel confident to do it, some things God gives you to do, like with Fouth Soil Ventures, you might be working at it for 10, 20, or 50 years. So you I don't need another revelation. This is what I'm going to be working on for a couple of years now. So, so you can also just work with the thing you heard last time, because it's still relevant and it's still the thing you're supposed to proceed with. And he's waiting on you to proceed with that before giving you something else to work on, because you haven't been faithful in that. Why is he going to give you more things? And so I think that's something to think about too.
Okay. No, that's good. As I'm recalling different examples in the Bible where they waited on the Lord, it seemed like it was often around strategy.
Mhm.
And so that would make sense then from a business perspective. Do we pursue this additional line of business? Do we do it another location? Where at? All those other things that seems very much like non-urgent decisions to wait on the Lord and let him produce that strategy. Not feel rushed into those, I guess.
Exactly. Those are great examples. But I mean, the things that might be worth pausing a lot about would be taking on debt. There's a lot about debt
Sure.
and wisdom about that. And so those would be ones that, like, you know what, maybe this delay or constriction, boundary you put in yourself is actually going to produce an innovative idea or provide you an opportunity that, if you just move forward, you missed out. You missed out on seeing God move in a certain way. And so I think that there
Yeah.
are impatience, in self-confidence, and I had a lot of clients during COVID, and I one of my business coaches who was a Christian. I told him, I'm trying to figure out how to advise my clients about this and what to do with that, and there's a lot of difficult circumstances with all my clients, and I just don't know what I should tell them to do. And he's like, and I said, his name was Eric. I said, Eric, I don't know the future, so what should I tell them to do? And he's like, Josh, when did you know the future? Like, so when did you know the future? So like the point was, I never really knew the future ever. So I should have been humbly praying. I should have been humbly asking God for wisdom, and then in peace making those decisions instead of just thinking that I knew. So I think a lot of it comes down to God continuing to humble us. And I think you made a great point, is big decisions, expensive decisions, the ones that have major consequence, a lot of people, those would be ones that, of course, you'd want to spend more time in prayer.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you want the Lord's advice on everything, but certainly where you have more time to make a decision, that makes more sense. Okay. You touched on something a little bit ago, and it was making my mind go towards stewardship, as you were talking about what a business should do with their money. The investment advice I give, if someone's looking for the highest rate of return that I could guarantee, I say, well, yeah, that's easy. Go give your money away. Give it to the kingdom. And that's an uncommon approach, but I'm only going to trust God's guarantee over anyone else's. How are you recommending business owners who, obviously, when you read the secular books, we understand, growth sucks cash, and just how expensive it is to run a business, to grow a business, cash flow is king, and everything else like that. How are you recommending businesses approach stewardship of the assets, approach their philanthropic, giving? Where are you teaching them about that?
Yeah, well, so the first place I want to go with my clients is I want them to set goals and objectives, both top line, bottom line, finish line. And then from that point, as a business coach, my goal is to help them grow, right? So grow their companies. And so I'm first focusing on those things, seeing their objectives, but I always point them back, to Genesis, where, Cain and Abel, it's always from the very beginning. It's giving your first, giving your best to God. And that's the idea. And you can give your first and best to God both through the way you work. That was the first command that Adam had, was to work. And so first, your stewardship is your body being the temple of the Holy Spirit. So actually stewarding that well, your mind, your heart, your body. So that stewardship, that's what I talk about in the very beginning. And then through that stewardship, obviously it's going to be your business. So your employees, and then through the overflow of what God gives you, you're going to be stewarding your money. And most of the companies I'm working with are not in a good state. One of them is selling their restaurant right now, so he will be pretty soon. But most of the time, they're not. They're at a tough spot, and so they're using all of their resources beyond what they're tithing, giving to church, back to invest in their company. And so you'd probably be better at advising in terms of the strategies. I don't get into investment strategies I'd probably just advise them to talk to you. I'm more about using their stewardship of themselves, their time, and their business to grow that, knowing then they can talk to someone like you about that.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I will throw this out there then for anyone listening to this that is in that business owner camp. Seek the Lord first on this, but one of my partners talks about there's a time for planting and a time for harvesting. Here, when it comes to giving, I have gone back to that approach of I feel best when we're giving of the first fruits, and so giving straight out of the business, straight to the church. The additional, offerings can come out, as the Lord guides me, but keeping an open hand toward the bank account and letting Him direct where that goes, not being quick or emotional to react, but letting Him guide that, I think is great. But taking leaps of faith, I've seen it pay off. So how about we switch then out of that and let's talk about the with business owners. So when you were telling me a little bit about yourself personally, you shared a story of a strong stance that you guys take as a family, and I thought I won't share that here, but I thought that was honestly, it was quite admirable of what you and your sons do in regard to the topic we were discussing. I loved the strong stance that you guys as a family take. Business owners, and they encounter these issues too. Obviously, different types of issues, but they encounter issues here. How are you encouraging them to take strong stances, whether it is against something evil or demonic that's inside the business or with a client, or something else within the industry or wherever they go? How are you encouraging them to take strong stances, and when are you encouraging them to when to take a strong stance versus when to maybe be a little bit more, not drawing a blank of the word here, but just being a little bit more casual with it?
Yeah. Well, throughout the curriculum that I'm building, the constant theme is that with each area of your life, I mean, if you look in the mirror for any amount of time, you're going to see imperfections. Each area of your business life, when you're missing the mark, when you're not, you're trying to pursue perfection, which is God, you're going to be missing the mark, right? And so to know that as you're getting asked these tough questions about how you're paying your people, or how you're advertising, or how you're developing your strategy, and to go to the Lord like you'd go to your dad and say, you've sinned, you've missed the mark, you're not doing it the way you should and you want to, and to feel that remorse first. I think that for any true transformation, for any opportunity for God to refine you in those ways, you have to start there. And then, I think I know what you're talking about with regard to our previous discussion, but if you don't have the time, let me go back. You want to tie this to which we do is fasting. So if you're going to be repentant, if you're going to be wanting to have a contrite heart, then fasting. So whether that's one meal, one day, multiple days, it does something. I'm not an expert in this, but it does something to you in terms of you showing the seriousness of how serious you hate the sin and what you have done, right? And it doesn't have to be some heinous sin, but just in terms of what you're doing in your company. And it gives you the time both to pray, because you're cutting that out of your life, but also it gives you the reminder that where your life comes from, where your source of energy comes from, where truth comes from. And I believe God honors that contrition and that coming to Him to absolve those sins, and also for Him to give you direction or wisdom that you need. So I think that that's a part of, and it seems unusual based on my previous work to focus on this, because it's being in the church a long time, being a Christian since I was 19, there's a lot of this kind of discussion around maybe like marriage or parenting or just your own personal walk with God with regards to purity. But
Mhm.
with regards to where I work with men primarily, they're spending 40 plus hours a week working, right? And so that area of life God does care about a lot. And so
Right.
you can apply all those same principles that maybe you learned through your marriage class or your parenting class, or whatever you learned at church, to your work situation, like as a business owner. And that's same rules apply. God is God there too. And so that would be my suggestion, is to take it a lot more serious than you are, and also realize that unless you're in a like a C12 business group or with a bunch of other Christian business owners, the majority of people are not like that. They don't really, they have a very different perspective on right and wrong than you do. And
Yeah.
so they're just not gonna relate. So you just can't compare yourself to others.
Okay. Well, that's good. I think there's so many people who call themselves Christians, and just because they go to church or they go to your church doesn't mean that they're willing to live their lives in a way that honors God, or in a way that honors his word. And so, yeah, I think being aware of, if you're not surrounded by other Christian business owners, that you might need to seek advice, whether that's hire, and plug here, go hire Josh as a consultant for this, but you need to get around people who can give you advice. I think especially when it comes to some of these hard things, you look at where, again, back to the Old Testament, where the Israelites failed. God told them to go kill every man, woman, child, and livestock. Well, he didn't do it because he's a mean God. He did that because, and again, go dig into Michael Heiser and understand more of the concepts behind this. But there was a reason for that. There was a reason that he said to do that. And it wasn't that it wasn't hard for them. And there was a reason he said, don't go intermarry with these other tribes. And it wasn't that it wasn't hard, because they all struggled with this. Most of the time they failed to fully execute on what he commanded them to do. And so as business owners, you will encounter difficult decisions that might require a strong stance. Not often. You shouldn't be walking around with a Bible hammer everywhere you go and whacking people with it, but there will come times where you have to make a strong stance, and you might need support with that, and as well as prayer and fasting to have the strength to honor God with that. Different approach here. Again, I love thinking through this from a Christian perspective of some different aspects of business. I want to talk about networking and marketing, and whether this is how you are advising some of your clients now, or if you have some advice that doesn't necessarily fit your clients right now, that's fine too. But what is your advice on how to approach networking and marketing from a Christian perspective? If I'm the Christian, accounting firm or dental office, anything else like that, how do you advise they go about it? Like, are they just try to go find Christian groups and only serve other Christians, or how are you guiding them?
Yeah, well, I'm guiding myself on this, which is basically, if you're going to be partnering in a business relationship with people, then you want to partner with other believers. And so, Christian associations and business groups and masterminds and things like that. So that would be the first place. And I can't think of any client examples where I'm saying, hey, you should network with folks in those industries. Like when I'm thinking of like my surgeon client, and one of them's does mill work and cabinetry and fitness studio. Like that's not a big part of their business. So, and then in terms of marketing, if you're trying to market like you and I are, we're trying to market for people we want to partner with, right? So it's very clear that we want to be equally yoked with them, because we're trying to drive towards a common vision, and there's going to be a lot of values shared and strategies shared. Where if you're marketing because you want to, like one of my clients, they sell cabinetry. You're not necessarily needing to have a specific demographic purchase that cabinetry. And so in that case, it's not partnering with people, it's ministering to an unbelieving world, right? So in that case, you're trying to be clear about who you are and and who you serve, and you're trying to be clear about how you work and why you work. And that's going to make an impact on those who buy from you, because they're going to see a difference, they're going to hopefully experience a difference, and they're going to tell others about you. And so that's what you want to do. So I think there's kind of two different strategies of marketing, and they're both are fine. Just depends on what kind of work you're involved in. So I don't know if I answered your question or not.
No, I think let's do with that for a minute here. So if these are intimate relationships, a business owner hiring a consultant, someone that they're going to spend quite a bit of time with, that's going to exert a strong influence on their business, we want that to be a believer. An accounting firm who hires or who is hired to work with a corporation to run their books, do their taxes, do their tax planning, and do a large scope of work, they might want to yoke up with believers. If they're going to do taxes if they've got someone that's just coming in, the normal individual who drops off their taxes and it's a $300 or $500 bill and that's it, and they move on, maybe not as important. The millwork place, they can put on their website, and again, and correct me if I'm wrong with stuff, but I'm just kind of trying to throw some ideas out here. So they can put on their website that they're Christian. They can have some Bible verses, even on some of the boxes that their cabinets go out in, and on their invoice, and they can make sure that they represent Christ well in their interactions with other people, whether it's being true to their word, or honest when there's a mistake, or that love in which they handle people, and being willing to check in with someone if they're struggling, a homeowner who's if they need cabinets, there's often emotion tied to this, because if someone's going through a kitchen remodel, it's taking longer, it's more expensive, there's other issues, and by the time the cabinets are coming in, they're far enough into the project that there's been emotion tied to this. So they can certainly offer to pray with people, whether they're believers or not, and do that, so they can represent Christ well, but they don't need to vet their clients out ahead of time to make sure that they're only selling to Christians. I'm just trying to grab some different applicable examples here.
Yeah, I mean, a greatest example I could share, had a huge impact on my life about over 10 years ago, was a client. He is a reverse vasectomy specialist, and so surgeon. So basically, he would do a reverse vasectomy for anybody, right? But he was very clear on his website that he was doing it because he's a Christian, and he wants to follow the mandate of be fruitful and multiply, and he wanted people to get a chance to have the blessing of children, and so some of his articles are very clear about that. His website's very clear about that. But people hired him because they wanted someone who had a lot of experience and who was good at it and had a fair price, and his price was lower than the average person in that industry, and he had tons of case studies of great success. And so every time people went to get their surgery, he just would do the pre-operation discussion and say, hey, again, the reason why I do this, I need to share the gospel with them. And do you have a Bible? If they give them one, if they didn't. And then he would do the surgery. But he wanted to make sure that he had an opportunity to share Christ. And then he would disciple those who were interested afterwards. Anyone who was curious afterwards, he'd disciple. And people loved him, and he did great work. And so I think that's an example of integrating your faith into your work, and his marketing included hints to it, but the vast majority of people who went to him were not believers.
Yeah. Okay. No, I think that's good. I think it's something for everyone to explore, whether you are the business owner or not, even as an employee. Plenty of employees have a scripture at the bottom of their email signature if their employer allows it. Plenty of employees have, in their cubicle, they have their own pictures of picture of Jesus and some verses up, or other things like that. So we all have our ability, whether you put a bumper sticker on your car, we have our ability to be a light. There's something good about the art of doing that. right? Jesus didn't say, hey, I don't want you to really tell people about me. Except, I guess there are cases that maybe that's a bad example. So like, it's not that you want to be too subtle with it, but there is a tasteful way to do that. And so I think whether this is employer or employee, I think there's just a way that we can all figure out how to be a stronger ambassador to the Lord. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, you really have to. It's those that are going to. Well, Jesus says, if you don't honor me or honor my words before other people, my Father's not going to honor you, right? So you do have to be clear and loving, and it is the most loving thing to be clear about it. And I think that's where the courage comes in, and I think that's where business owners have a huge opportunity. They're touching so many people in the marketplace, and they're missing out if they just say, and I've heard this so often, we just do biblical principles, and so we're just going to be kind, and we're just going to be on time and on budget. And it's like, well, so is everyone else. So you actually haven't, advanced anything because you're just trying to be a good business, which everyone else is. And so it doesn't mean be a bad business, but there's an opportunity there to do things in Jesus' name. And that is carrying his name forth in a way that you get to do. And so, once you join, Team Jesus, this is a great opportunity, and don't be quiet. Just like you talked about politics, is like, don't be quiet. Don't be quiet. Instead, speak up and bring life to the situation.
Yeah. Will you close us a little bit with? Let's talk about how you're talking to people about what a growth breakthrough looks like what you're trying to coach your clients to, and then tell us how someone, what type of clients are the right fit for you, and how someone engages with you.
Sure. Yeah. If they go to fouthsoilventures.com, certainly they can go there and read about, there's a 5 steps to a biblical growth breakthrough. And the concept behind there is that, again, like we've been stressing it again and again, is starting with prayer, starting with the foundation, starting with letting go of this world in your business and allowing God to have first takes at it and to give you direction first. And once you do that, then aligning each aspect of your business, whether it's the strategy, the principles, the processes, the whole thing. If you start with that foundation, you're going to end up starting with the right soil, and you're going to end up with a good fruit. Right. And it's when you are afraid to let go and instead you want to hold on to it and do it your own way that you end up looking just like the world. And so that would be the growth breakthrough. And it really is, and I've seen it so many times, is that you think you can use the world's techniques to grow fruit that glorifies God, and you just can't. Right? He won't let you do that. Like you have to start his ways for the fruit to be pure. And so I just think it's important that people wrestle with that and are willing to take a good look at it.
That's good. All right. Who's the right type of client that you're looking for? Yeah.
So owners of companies, owners, entrepreneurs who are men, and they just want to align their faith with their business, and they want to use their company to glorify God, and they're looking for help. And so it's those who want an advisor, they want a coach, they want someone to hold them accountable and to design a plan for them and help to operationalize their vision into something that can scale. And if so, then I'm your guy.
All right. And go to the website and reach out to you through that, correct?
Yep.
All right. Josh Fonger, thank you very much. Appreciate you joining us and sharing the wisdom, and wish you the very best as you continue to grow your influence on the kingdom economy.
Hey, thanks, Eric.
Thank you again for listening to Wealth Well Done. Be sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast player, and together we'll continue to improve our relationship with money and our effectiveness in stewarding it well.